Hey everyone, welcome back, or welcome if you're new to my channel. My name is Remy Reminder, the RKH, and I'm really trying to get back into YouTube. But my first video back should be about my book that I wrote, Debunking the World We Live In. It is my most prized possession and something that I have worked so hard at. I've been getting some questions recently about how I wrote my book, what the process was, because I've been doing book signings and I self-published. And so I wanted to answer some questions as well as give you all some insights into how this process has been going, the hardships along the way, the miraculous moments, and so forth. So if you're interested, keep on watching. Debunking the World We Live In is a book that I wrote and published in 2024. I published it by myself in April of 2024. And a lot of people think you need to work with the publisher. And I can get that. Like, it's kind of a limiting belief of you think you're only worthy if you're going to work with a publisher. And people ask me which route that I went, and I decided to self-publish for a few reasons. I had an event that I was doing where I was going to be selling this book because I kind of like gave myself a deadline. And the second being is that I didn't want to pitch myself to publishers, to be honest. And for myself, I didn't feel like a publisher was going to necessarily help me at that moment, and nor did I want to justify what I was writing about to a publisher. My book is subtitled Unpacking the Matrix and System. So I didn't need the system to validate me because I've worked through a lot of that the last few years as a spiritual healer. So if you've been around for a while, you'd already know that I spent a lot of time unpacking my own life purpose, as well as switching from law to psychic healer. Now I'm back in law part-time. And people ask, well, what is your book about, right? Like, they want to know. And it's essentially everything that I teach my clients and everything that I practice and put into my own life to get to where I am in a manual form. It's really digestible. So any person could pick it up. And if they have a willingness and they have an open mind, they'd be able to take something from this to help them on their spiritual path. Back of my book reads, this book is all about adjusting your expectations of the 3D world. It gives perspective into how energy works and its impact on what goes on every day. There's exploration into the systems that surround us, like healthcare, government, law, and why we are built to be codependent on the people, places, and things in our lives. Together, we explore the changes that we can make to understand our human condition better and to live a more fulfilling life. So I wanted everybody to be able to understand their past lives and their trauma and their kind of like capabilities as a way to live a life of less burnout. And I do a lot of work around human design and astrology, and I'm a psychic healer and a life coach. So I also have that background in combination with like having been a lawyer or being a lawyer and incorporating my knowledge and skill set into this because I understand it from a unique perspective. And everything, like I said, that I teach my clients, I have in this book, like the modalities, the language that I use. Like, I've made up my own terms to explain to people what is going on spiritually. And of course, I hope that the whole world one day knows what these terms are and uses them in their own life. So how did I come about like writing this book? So the book has been up here for years, like a really long time. I love to write. I've been like an activist for a long time. I've written like blog posts. I've written ebooks. I write a lot on my social media and on my Instagram. And being a lawyer, like, yes, I like words and I like language and I like to read. And so of course, writing goes in alignment with that. Fun fact is, like, I wanted to be a judge, and that's kind of like on the back burner or question mark right now. But that was like another reason. I was like, I love to write. I love to write reasons. I love to write like the thought process about things. And so it's always been up here because it's something that became inherent to me. It's something that started to become second nature. And I always wanted to like give a tool to my clients as well as to individuals that wanted like maybe a more inexpensive or accessible way to work with me or to learn about their awakening, and a good starting point, because like thousands of hours and dollars have been spent on me by myself to like understand what my process is. And so I put all of this in here. It's 125 pages, about 9 chapters, a little bit of an about me, and then like even some graphs and things like that I drew up to help you understand the energy and how it works a little better. And so it is, like I said, my prized possession. How long did it take me to write this book? It took me 5 weeks. And people are like, what? I think it honestly could have been less than 5 weeks that it took me to write this. Like, going through a separation at this point. I mean, I hadn't fully decided to get divorced, but I was at my parents' house. I was trying to distract myself, or just not even distract, actually like put my energy towards something that was really meaningful for me, and a goal that I had, which was writing this book. And my dad was actually putting a lot of pressure on me to write the book. Not because I didn't want to do it, but like he was holding me accountable every day because he was seeing me every day when I was staying with them and would ask me like, what's the progress you made on your book? Because he had like invested money into my first run of my book, as well as getting me into my first event. He wanted to like be that person that did that for me. God bless him. And so every single day I knew like I was going to be asked, and it really helped me put like a fire under my butt. Because, and you guys will end up hearing about this at another time, but like the relationship and the marriage that I left was really toxic. It was abusive, and I wasn't able to focus on myself or my career because I was always managing the relationship. I was dealing with a lot of fatigue. I was dealing with emotional abuse and isolation and manipulation on a daily basis. So the time that I had and no contact during that separation was the time that I could actually sit down and put a focus on without worrying about a bunch of these external circumstances. So I did that. And editing wise, I mean, I guess because of my like education and background, I have really good grammar. I'm good at editing. So I edited it myself, but I also ran it through Grammarly. This is not an ad, but if you like, if you want to like use AI or you want a good tool, I felt like Grammarly helped a lot. It helped me like look at all the things that I was missing. And mind you, even after I did that and printed my first run of these, of a couple hundred copies, I did have typos in there. So I've gone back and like edited, but like the copies of those that are like still left that people haven't bought online do have those typos in it. And I just had to like be okay with that. I had to be okay with it not being like, I don't know, 100%, but like I've read books with like typos in it, right? So my grammar is like, if I say so myself, really good to begin with. That was just like a plus that played a role in the editing process. And I've gone through it a few times since then. The third time I went through it was earlier this year in 2025 when I was recording my audiobook. And so when I'm reading it, I'm seeing whether or not there's any mistakes. And then I was editing it as I'm speaking out loud to see, oh, does this sound better? Or does this sound right? And so that was like the last pass through that I gave for the editing process. And if you want to listen to my book, you can listen to it for free on Spotify. If you want to get a copy of my book, it's linked in the description, but it's available at Indigo Online, Barnes & Noble's online, Amazon, and Kindle. Ebook available on my website. I have some manual copies that are available on my website if you want like a written note from me. And then it's in person in some of the Indigo locations in the Lower Mainland in BC. Segue into Indigo. How did that happen? People are like, how did you get into Indigo? How did you like work through this publishing process? So like I said, I wanted to work like on my own to do this, at least at that point in time. And I was pitching individually to each Indigo, and they took me in on a consignment basis. You have to like pitch your book to them, give them all the information and all of that. And so I had done that, and luckily got into all of the locations I've pitched to so far. There's a few more that I'm looking to get into here locally, but admin, people are delayed, people are non-responsive, and that's all right. And at those locations, I've gone and done book signings. So friends and family have come, books are on the shelves. And so that was a really big milestone for me to look back at like how far I came. I mean, writing this book early 2024, going through a divorce and separation, it being a really heavy and like traumatic thing that I went through, picking myself up, like picking my life back up again. Like everything that I teach in this book is what I use to get my life back on track. Because I am a coach and I'm a healer, I use that to transmute anything that's going on in my life. But on a personal note, or like on an energetic note, we know that women go through a lot of the emotional detachment from a relationship ahead of physically leaving. So I had been going through that in therapy and like coaching myself again through the process of it. But when I just look back at like now, my first book signing was August 2025. I published this book and got it printed April 2024. And so it was just like boom, 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 boom. Everything just started to happen for me when I really stepped into my alignment and my purpose and chose myself. So the next steps for this is more Indigo locations across Canada, hopefully worldwide and into the United States. And so this is like the beginning of the journey of this book, and it has been met with a lot of support and receptivity. What I love is like when I get on a call with a client and they have my book bookmarked or like dog-eared, highlighted, or they want to know a certain principle of what's going on in it, or they want to go deeper into it, or they have a problem and I'm like, you have my book, go read this chapter. So it has really shown me like my knowledge, and I think it's just a little bit of a redemption for all of my past lives where I was burnt at the stake for being a spiritual healer and a chosen one and a witch or whatever people want to call it. But for having these gifts and do this publicly, it has been amazing. And actually, let me read to you what chapters I have in here. And we'll go with that. So chapter 1, introduction, a journey to my ascension. So just a little bit of like a biography of who I am and like how I started to realize I had these gifts. System 2, chapter 2, the system debunked. Chapter 3, what is the matrix and divine orchestration? Chapter 4, intergenerational patterns and colonialism. Chapter 5, am I destined for failure? Chapter 6, does one thing impact everything? That's my favorite one. I call it the energy timeline. Chapter 7, how our past lives impact our current one. Chapter 8, spiritualists are labeled Satanists. So again, burnt at the stake, spirituality is bad, it's so woo-woo, blah, blah, blah. That's all rhetoric that the matrix and system has infiltrated the system with in order to make you feel as if your power is not within and your power is not internal. That's also like in institutions and religious institutions and church, and just depending on like if you've ever felt like you've been brainwashed to not believe in yourself. Chapter 9 is finding meaning. Chapter 10 is the conclusion. Then 11 is the appendix, which is some definitions of kind of what I teach and what I call it. The process of writing the book was pretty simple. I basically just have like a ton of stuff up here, as I was saying. So I was like, what are my chapters going to be? I wrote out my chapters. I'd go and be like, hey, where am I going to start? Which was at the top. And then I would write. And I just wrote what I was channeling. Like this whole book is essentially a channeling. Like I sometimes go back and read parts of my book. You know what I mean? Because it came from a higher vibrational version of me, not necessarily a 3D version of me. And so I would write and write and write and write and write. I had like a sort of like, I kind of had a guideline of how many pages I wanted each chapter to be. And I was writing it out on Word. I was saving it on my Google Drive. And then eventually when it came to getting closer to publish and I was going to be editing it, I made the margins the size of a book. So then I went on to Word doc like online on Google, and then I made sure that the margins were like this so I could see how many pages there were and started to edit it. All of the diagrams I made on Canva. I made sure that I wasn't using any of the elements in Canva Pro, because the Canva Pro elements are, they're kind of licensed, like you can't use that and monetize off of it. So I made sure that all the elements that I was using were the basic elements if you're familiar with Canva. So nothing that has a crown on it, because that's not like a stock or royalty free image or element that you can use. So just a tip there, because when I started to kind of look into that, I saw that there were some elements I was using that were in Canva Pro. Then I had to go back and edit and adjust the diagrams that I was making. I'm in there like really shoddy, but I don't even care, because I'm like, eventually I know this is going to get picked up and we're going to work through it again. And it serves a purpose that it needs to serve right now. And I have had to work through my perfectionism with it. And I'll come to that when it comes to like how this process has been post this, I don't know, introduction into my life, like after writing it. I get any backlash for it, maybe the topics. I thought I would, but nobody has given me backlash for the topics. I've gotten really good reviews. I've gotten really good feedback. People tag me when they're reading the book. They let me know what's resonating. What feels really cool sometimes is like, they're like, I need to be prepared to read it. And I love that, because it's like, I obviously wrote it for the intention of those that are awakening or on their ascension path and process. And so for people to respect it in that way, to be like, I need to be ready for this information, feels really validating for me, as well as just amazing for all like the efforts that were put in, as well as the efforts that like the collective and my engagers are putting in to make sure that they are becoming the best version of themselves. And generally, if I can help assist in that, or if my book is going to give any sort of help in that area, that is humbling. It's an honor for me to provide any sort of leadership in that space. And a whole reason why, like, you know, I originally left law and then went into spiritual healing was to fully put my 10 toes down into this business and into what my purpose is, as I said, as a chosen one or a witch or a healer or whatever you want to say. But if you want to hear about that process from psychic to healer, it's episode 20 something on my podcast on Spotify and Apple, which you can also find in my link tree down below. That is for another video. If you were to work with the publisher, you would be introducing yourself individually to each company. If they give you a meeting, you would be pitching perhaps with a deck. You would be telling them what your book is about. They would be looking at what they have in those genres. Is this a part of their shtick, right? Is this a part of what they actually do? Do they believe in you? Do they want to monetize, right? And that's the thing, is like a lot of companies will put that limitation on people, or a lot of people will use a response as a way to validate what they're putting out there. Like, hey, if a publisher doesn't pick this up, this means it's not worthy. Hey, if this person says I'm bad at this, this means I can't do this, right? So we have to be really careful and know like why we're doing it. The benefits of having a publisher is like, yeah, they're going to invest in it. They're going to put some money forward. Maybe they're going to help you with press. Maybe they're going to help you with a book tour, depending on the size of the book, depending on what you want to incorporate, right? Depending on what your metrics are, what your audience is. Do you already have a platform? Do you not? Are they taking a risk, right? There's going to be so many questions, and these are just things off the top of my head that I know would be considered, which is why I decided I'm going to self-publish, which didn't mean that I needed to go and actually do anything. I uploaded everything by myself. So with Amazon, you do that on Amazon KDP, which is a back-end sort of software that they use. Everything is within the margins, and you can set your price on there. You set your margins in there. It's going to tell you whether or not you're in, like whether you need to edit anything. You also don't have to provide Amazon with physical copies of your book. So it is all print on demand. So when somebody orders your book on Amazon, when you do it off of KDP at least, they are going to print it for you and mail it. So how cool is that? That's like drop shipping. And they take a portion of the cost of your sale, and then you get the rest. So you get to decide how much profit you get. They tell you how much it's going to cost to print the book. They ask you, do you want like white pages? Do you want black and white? Do you want color? What's the cover gonna look like? All of that is in the KDP platform. And then when it comes to Kindle, there's a separate platform for that where you can upload it. Separate platform where you can upload your Audible on ACX as well. You just got to make sure that everything is in accordance with their guidelines there. That was a little bit of a difficult one to figure out. I recorded my audiobook myself. I have like my podcast mic and everything, so that was easy enough for me to do and to edit because I'm tech savvy. And so I was uploading it, and I had to make sure that certain things were right, that they were saved. That information is all really easy to find online. But again, I am tech savvy, so I think it was a little bit easier for me, even though it was frustrating for me as well, to have to figure out how to make sure that the audio was all correct. And that Audible thing is still something that I'm working through and getting uploaded, because it's been such a delay in doing that and their processing time. So maybe a reminder for me to check in on that. As I said, my book is available for free on Spotify. All the chapters are there already, and I just wanted to do that as a little gift to everyone that believes in the work that I do, or a little bit more about the book ahead of buying the paperback copy. The process itself was not stressful because again, it was all information that I had. It was more of like this rush that I was putting on myself of like, I need to get this done, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to like make sure that I'm on my own timeline that I made up for myself. But I had an event that I was doing at the end of April, so I needed the book done and printed and ready to go. I was doing Fan Expo, which is like Comic-Con in Calgary. And so my books needed to go with me there, where I was, selling and doing some readings and stuff. So that was really cool in April of 2024. So let's get a little bit into the vulnerable side of this book process. When we go through any really big shift in our life, or we're going through some expansion, we're going to be witnessing how people show up for us. We're going to be having a change in our circle, maybe a change in resonance. Individuals may be jealous of you. They may not understand you. They may not want to support you. They may be, comparing themselves to you. So this was like this has been a challenge for me. I'm still working through like my layers of vulnerability. Like I am really vulnerable on my page and my platform. I think I share really openly, but like when I feel like I'm going to look insecure is when I have a difficult time opening up. So I was talking about this in my story yesterday. Maybe it was a little bit of a buffer to get me to make this, but I think it's important because when it comes to social media, like if you're just watching this on YouTube, I've been on Instagram for a long time, public on Instagram for a long time. And so like I've been public facing and forward, and people have known who I am in like my community for a long time. So like I've had a sense of clout and a reputation already built. And right now, like writing the book has been a new process for me. I'm novice at something, I'm junior at something, and like I'm a perfectionist. I want to be the best at everything I do. I want everything to be at the pinnacle of success for me to feel that it's valuable and meaningful. And I know that this is like such a big accomplishment. When I look at it, it's fucking huge. And one thing I forgot to say was like last February, I was walking at Indigo in Langley in BC with my niece. She was only like 3 months old. My sister and I were taking her for a stroller ride. And we were in Indigo, and I was like, Mussy, as an aunt in Punjabi, I'm like, Mussy's gonna be in this bookstore one day. And then my first book signing in August was at Indigo Langley, and she was there, and she was 1 year old, and she's walking around. And like those crazy moments of manifestation like really show me the power and the truth of what I do, but reminded me of like how big of a moment this was while going through the divorce, while going through like a criminal assault file. Again, stories that are for another day, but like there was a lot going on. I'm like, I actually still did this. I put this fucking together. And so because I'm a perfectionist, I have a hard time looking at my accomplishments and being like, wow, like it's just like automatic. Like when I set my mind to do something, I'm going to do it. Like there is no buffer. Like I don't make a goal for myself and not follow through on it. I have never done that. I think that makes me a really strong person, but it also makes it really hard for me to like sit in the present moment of my accomplishments. And I think like any high achieving alpha male or female is in that position all the time. And I think that's also what makes me really successful in my business and what I do and like how I show up. Like I don't make excuses for myself. And so yeah, of course I was going to do this, but I have had a hard time sitting down and really like being present. When I got the first acceptance from the first Indigo, I cried a lot and I was just so happy. When I saw my book on Amazon, I was really happy. When I see that people buy it and tag me, it makes me really happy. When I see a new royalty come in, it makes me really happy. When I see people that I've never met before in person at my book signing, or people that are in the store and they come and they want to get to know me and then they're like, yeah, we want to buy your book, right? When my clients' kids came with her to my last book signing and asked for my autograph in their book that wasn't even written by me, like those are the moments that I really actually look back at as like, whew, you know, I had somebody, he showed up at my first book signing. I mean, he was just there at the store. And I was going and taking pictures at the back, 'cause I had a photographer and videographer at my first book signing. And so I wasn't like at the table at that moment. And somebody at the table, my friends or family, had like pitched my book to him, which was amazing. And they're like, oh, he's over there paying. And like I run and I was like, oh my God, let me sign it for you. He's like, oh, thanks so much for doing that. He's like, I don't have any social media or anything. I was like, here's my card. I'd love to know like how you like my book, right? Like, please let me know. My website's on my book anyway. And my second book signing, he was coincidentally there. Like he didn't know because he doesn't have social media, right? He was like, oh yeah. Like, I was like, did you know I was going to be here? He's like, no. He's like, by the way, I haven't read your book yet. Like, that's why I haven't emailed you. I was like, I was wondering last week whether or not you'd read my book. And I don't think he understands like how big of a moment this was for me. He was just there. And then he's like, okay, yeah, like write your email down again. I'll email you. And then he emailed me. I was like, how was your book signing? Like, I read your book. He was like, I haven't read it yet. I'm going to be on the plane next week and I'll read it. I was like, okay, I'll let you know what I think. And then he emailed me saying what he thought and that it was great. And that like he had a couple of feedback points for me, but all positive. And that he was going to buy 10 copies for an event he's running in January. This is someone I don't know, that doesn't follow me, that doesn't follow the work I do, that has no obligation to be there for me, or feels that there's this condition to do that or expectation to do that. And that moment just really stood out with me, like 10 copies or more. And then I was like, hey, if you want to come to my last book signing, which was at Indigo on Robson, I was like, I can give you the 10 copies in person and like sign them for you, for whoever you're giving them to at this event. And he couldn't come. And then he asked when my next one was. So like that moment, right? Like those individuals that put a lot of love and care into what I do and see my potential. And he's Punjabi, so he's like, you know, I love like to see our community thrive. And like, here's a couple more bookstores I think you could get into. And I was just like, man, like that's just so kind and so nice, because again, there is no obligation. And like, I do a lot of this on my own. And now I'm starting to get support through some friends and support through some like, you know, I had to fire my old assistant, but you know, I'm looking for a new assistant. So that helps, but it's like I'm one person and I do all of this alone, and then run a business and a podcast and have a job, right? Like there's so much going on. But it has been like such a blessing to carry this in a way, but to be really new at something. So on the vulnerable side, it has been hard for me. It has been, like, my ego is a little hurt and crushed, like I said, because I'm not used to being junior or new at something. I'm not used to being, I don't want to say really good, but like, I'm not used to questioning my ability, maybe even parts of my purpose. That's a good point. I think maybe I'm questioning my purpose in my book because of the amount of people that have showed up, because I expected more people. But what did I don't know what I expected. I don't know, did I expect 200 people out the door? Maybe that would have made me feel like, yeah, I accomplished something. But it doesn't change the fact that I accomplished this, that this exists. Like, it doesn't matter how many people show up. This exists. I did this. And those are those present moments that have been harder for me, or when people say they're going to show up and they don't show up. When family members of mine that I've invited haven't shown up, that or when certain friends, right, say they're going to show up, or I ask for help. I've asked for help a couple of times and it hasn't been followed through on. And so those are the moments that are really disheartening for me, because I know how difficult it was for me to get to this point. And even though I don't really relate to past versions of myself, and the writing process itself was easy, it's like I was going through a lot of stress, like to write this book and to have it with like my blood, sweat, and tears through a time that was really traumatic for me, and to have made it through the other side. And, you know, people don't intentionally decide not to show up. But I've always kind of felt this with a lot of friends and family. Like, if you're watching this, I think I just need to be like just more raw about it these days, because I always fear like I'm being judged, or people, and it probably is happening for a lot of people. Like, we're watching this, now she's talking shit. Like, it's just like a part of the reality of who I am. There's a lot of like inner child trauma and healing that's been happening in those spaces of how people show up for me, who shows up for me, who congratulates me. And I was expecting a lot more of a turnout from my family and friends, and majority of the support I've gotten from my book, minus my first book signing, have been from people that don't know me or from friends compared to family. And that has been like a constant in my life, minus my parents and my brother and some of my cousins, like that I have not been given my flowers. And why would I want flowers from people that are going to give me a dead bouquet? I don't really know. Again, that's an insecurity that I think I will be working on for the rest of my life. The more I expand, the bigger my brand gets, the more stages I'm on, the more I'm doing, the less likely people are going to be to show up for me in those moments, unconditionally at least. Maybe until a moment where it's really big and then people get to milk off of that, right? But there's going to be judgment. There has been judgment. There's always judgment from the community. I know people that went to law school judge me on a daily basis. I've heard it. I know that they've submitted stuff through my website because I'm psychic. I know who's doing this stuff. But like, I have to keep on persisting and persevering. And Katy Perry actually said to somebody on American Idol once of like, you're never going to succeed if you read the comments to this individual, because her mom was like a politician and was super red, and she didn't relate to her mom. It's like values or ethics or whatever you want to call it. And Katy Perry said that, and I was like, yeah, I know. Like, and Brene Brown says like people that are in the bleachers will always throw tomatoes at those in the spotlight. Like, it just is kind of what it is. And that's been an evolution for me, to be okay with receiving the disrespect I get sometimes, or just blatant ignorance. But I have built my grit up enough where I don't really get offended by negative commentary anymore. I don't really get it anymore, because like I have a lot of security in who I am as a person, but that's where like my insecurity really lies. So I think a lot of people maybe assume, like, again, this is an assumption, that I don't need the support, I don't want the support, it doesn't matter, that the follow through is not important. Like, it's really important to me, because like when I say I'm going to show up somewhere, I show up. If I know that something really important is happening in a friend's life or a family member's life, I will show up, because I know how difficult it is to achieve that. And that's like what's really, like I said, really hard for me, and makes me really vulnerable, and it's like hurtful for my inner child, because like she holds on to that commitment. She holds on to that, and she was like, you know, like, yeah, like the showing up piece. And that's something that I have been working through a lot, as well as setting my boundaries around of like, you don't need to make space for everybody, but also give the flowers and love back to those that show it for you. And not everybody is going to be supportive of my endeavors. A lot of people are not going to be supportive of my transparency, my rawness, my authenticity, right? Because like I come forward and I talk a lot about things that have impacted me, childhood trauma, bullying, things that make people question their decisions and how they've treated me. And I've never said names because I don't sit here and talk about this with people. There's times where I've tried, where people haven't followed up, where people haven't replied to me, where people have continued to double down on their behaviors, right? And so maybe a part of me is like, was hoping like maybe this would be the one thing that you show up for. Because people will show up for your wedding or your baby shower, a fun fucking event where they can party. Just similar to how like single friends don't get as much consideration from their married friends, right? For these other accomplishments. And for me, like, my graduations and my bar calls and like these accomplishments like mean a lot more, at least in this period of my life, because of like the brand I'm building and because of everything I've been through or was, you know, going through these last few years. In the process of doing this, it makes me feel really neglected at times. And so that's something I'm just working on, because it's not necessarily with intention, but some, like, I guess why it feels like it is at times is because like I will go to an event or I'll go somewhere and people that are local from here, like I understand when I'm like traveling and my friends or family are asking me because like they're not here, right? I don't expect someone to get on a plane. But when it's in person with somebody that lives nearby or has the means to make it, and they're like, oh my God, congratulations on your book. Or I saw this about your book. I'm like, you've never interacted with anything. You've never like commented. You've never messaged me. You've never called me. You've never shown up. But when you see me in person, you want to congratulate me on my book. Like that, like for me is like really icky, because I'm like, okay, so you do see it. You do see it. So in those moments where I ask my friends or family to repost something to help me get some traction, or I send a message, a broadcast for people to show up, no response. But when you see me, that's just a point of conversation. And I don't want to say it's been confusing, because like on an energetic standpoint, I get it and I know why. I'm just not that type of person, because I want to be there, right? I want to congratulate you. If I'm invited, I'm going to show up if I can, to make sure that you know that your presence is like valuable to me. And yeah, like I said, that's something like I'm working on and working through. And so whenever like I post about my book signing, I get a little insecure. I ask people to come, or I write it in my caption. Like I actually mean it. Can you come? Like, can you show up? Like, I'm not just saying that. Like, it makes me feel weird posting about it. It makes me feel weird that, I don't know, like I don't want to say it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but I don't know what that would even look like. I need to just be okay. Like I always set my expectations that no one's going to come, and that's never the case anyway. But yeah, that's just like kind of what I'm working through. And that's been the difficult part, like I said, of being new at something. I've had to self-reflect, take a look at my ego, take a look at what I want to do right now and where I'm building it from, trusting and knowing that everything I want to manifest with this is going to come true. So that's where I stand with my book right now and how it came to be. I would absolutely love to know if you have any other questions. I mean, that publishing process was pretty basic and simple, and I've gotten questions about that. But if you want to know about my other book signings, I mean, the next one is December the 6th at Park Royal, 2025, December 6th, 2025, 1 to 3 at Park Royal in West Vancouver. Outside of that, you'll have to keep an eye out on my social medias for the ones that are coming up. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, making sure you're subscribed. And any questions you have, as I said, leave them down below and I'll catch them in the next video. Okay, bye.